All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started so we can keep on schedule. We have a full agenda today. So we want to make sure we get everything in and get people on the road in a timely fashion. Thank you for joining us here at U of M Dearborn. I hope you didn't have to risk life and limb driving here. Those of you who are joining us via Zoom, I hope you're staying safe and warm wherever you might be. I know there's some treacherous weather, quite a bit of snow throughout the state, particularly if you're living on the edges of the state near a lake. Seems like that's where the issues are. If you don't remember my name, it's okay. Sometimes I even forget it. It's Stein Brunban, Associate Dean here, currently the President of DARTEP. And so again, welcome. And I want to invite our Dean, Dr. Anna Williams, Dean of the College of Education, Health and Human Services, up here for some brief comments.
Hold your applause. Way too much applause. I don't know if that's early in the morning or Stein has told you how he really feels about me. So I hope it's because it's early in the morning. Good morning. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you this morning. I sit in awe of the work that you do every day. I sit in awe of the difference you make in this world every day. So if I don't say anything else while I'm up here, I wanted to make sure that I share with you that your work is important, it is valued, and I sincerely appreciate all that you do every day. First, on behalf of the University of Michigan Dearborn and the College of Education and Health and Human Services, welcome to the University of Michigan Dearborn. We are excited that you're here today. We're excited that we're hosting. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for you to become more familiar with our campus and us to become more familiar with you throughout the day. As Stein probably shared, where the restrooms are located, and if you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. We're here to make sure that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful experience on campus. So if you need any assistance with anything, please let us know. If it's technology related, ask Stein, because I don't know. But he's our guru there. I also want to make sure that I acknowledge and say welcome to our colleagues who are joining us online. We know you're here today, and we know that being able to join us via Zoom is just as important as being physically present. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us online. I also want to make sure that I take a moment to say thank you to the Michigan Department of Education. And I see one of my Michigan Department of Education folks over there. And it's because I probably drove her crazy a while ago when U of M Dearborn was going through reaccreditation. But I just want to say thank you to MDE, because I cannot remember when we had a question and MDE didn't step up to support us. So I know that we're not special. I know MDE is doing the same thing across the entire state, but I wanted to say on behalf of the Department of Education that we really appreciate what you do and the support you've given us over the years. So thank you for that. I also want to take a moment just again to say thank you to what you do every day, and that's producing teachers. One of the things I like to share, because I have to take a moment and brag about our teacher preparation program, 85% of our teachers stay in the area, which means that they're teaching the next generation right here in walking distance from this building. So we are so excited that not only do we get to prepare the next generation of teachers, 85% of our graduates stay in the area, and we get to see them blossom and become leaders within education. So I wanted to share that with you. Lastly, I just want to take a moment because I know that you just have so much free time. I know you do. To also take a moment and invite you to visit main campus. On main campus is just a beautiful space. And if you have an opportunity to just even drive through the main campus, you'll have an opportunity to see the Hidden Florida State which is just a beautiful, amazing home. It recently went through renovations, and so it's now open back up to the public. So something just to think about if it doesn't work for this trip, maybe a future trip. And if you have an opportunity also, our EIC, our Environmental Interpretive Center has amazing facilities. We're really fortunate because it allows us to do school day trips for our K-12 students to come and learn about the environment. So Stein is waving to me in his mind, which means I need to stop talking. So again, thank you so much for giving us the privilege of hosting you today. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to make your time here pleasant, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Tell us she had a full 30 minutes. I guess she didn't want to use it all. No. So just a couple of things. Ann mentioned the main part of campus to orient you a little bit. As you pulled in here, you might have thought, this is a campus? It looks like an office building. So this is the Fairlane Center, of course. There's a north and south side to it. Used to be owned by Ford, was sold to the university about 20 years ago. So what's housed in this building is College of Education, Health and Human Services, College of Business, ITS, they have a bunch of servers and so forth, career services. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few other offices that are in this building. The main part of campus basically has everything else. It's over on the others between us is the Fairlane Mall, essentially. And so that is it is a beautiful campus. And if you have a chance to drive through there, I would encourage you to do that. Always, when you start meetings like this, two most important things: how do I get online? Where's the bathroom, right? So here is the Wi-Fi information. EduRoam should work as well if you use that before in different campuses. This information will be at the bottom of most of the slides as well. The bathrooms, if you haven't already found them, if you see the exit sign here, the middle of that wall, if you were like David Montgomery running through the Packers defense and could run through that wall, there'd be a hallway right there. Go Lions, can it, please? Are there Packers fans in here? Because we can ask them to leave if we need to. Okay, so anyway, the easier way, if you can't go through walls, an easier way is going either through that door or this front door and work your way. There are signs. There's a hallway there. They're right off that hallway. And so those two pieces of information are always useful. Are there some new folks to DARTEP? We've got Beth with the microphone, so you can introduce yourself. Any new DARTEPians? Yes, Beth or.
Hi everyone, my name is Heidi Reed, and I am living here from Rochester Christian University, where I'm serving as a professor and chair.
Excellent, welcome.
Good morning, I'm Pam Lilly. I am new to Open University. I'm an elementary coordinator for all of our placements. So happy Friday to everybody.
Indeed, thank you.
Any other new people in the audience today? Then I would also like to acknowledge that today is the last DARTEP meeting for Lisa Ng, who will be leading us. If I did not find you before the meeting, I have a card for those of you that might like to write a little sentiment on here. So if you need the card, flag me down. I'm happy to pass it off to you. So welcome to our new members and best wishes to members of the new meeting.
And as you may know, Lisa is leaving because she's retiring. We know that because she's told us every time we've seen her. But it's just also, for me, it's gratifying to know that that's something people do. You know, so we all aspire to that, and now we have a role model. Excellent. So she's writing a book about how to do it, right? Okay, good. I want to also thank the team that helped put together this whole day for you. So my colleagues from Dearborn here, they've mostly congregated at a table over there. So kind of wave. We've got Donna and Danielle and Susan, David, Samika, Jerry, and a few folks out in the hallway. Chelsea, Jonathan, Sherry, Marshall also is helping out. So we've got a great team here. I'm very fortunate to work with a wonderful group of professionals who do an amazing job of making me look good. And let's be honest, folks, that's not easy to do. So I very much appreciate them and all they did to make this meeting happen. I think that is all I had. You're probably happy to hear that, so I'm going to turn it over to Beth. Are you ready to go through your bit? There are steps, but if you want to try to leap right up at the front, you can do that too. I don't know. Did you stretch this morning or no?
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Happy December. Do I advance this, Brian, or do you advance this? I do? Okay, great. Here are some dates for our upcoming meetings. February 7th will be virtual, so you won't have to make the drive. And then May is going to be our continuous improvement conference. We'll get more information about that later today, I believe. Do you want me to go ahead and do the minutes, Stein? We had the minutes sent out to you earlier this week. Do we have a motion to approve the October minutes? Thank you very much. Motion to move, second. Lisa seconds. Thank you very much. And now the treasurer's report. All institutions are paid. Woo! Gold star for all of you up in the upper left corner there. I'm very grateful for those of you that I stalked for a little while. So thank you for getting that payment in. For those of you that had new members registered, I have given the list to Brian. He will be updating the member listserv and getting those new names added to the list. And so by the end of today, maybe next week, you will officially be on the list if you have not been getting those emails yet. We want to talk a little bit about what it means to be a DARTEP member. Regular members are representatives of our state-approved teacher prep programs. So it's defined in our constitution, I guess you'd call it, as four-year institutions of higher ed. Each institution can have as many members as they want. Again, they're paying members, and regular members do have full voting privileges. We also have a category called associate members, and those are representatives of institutions and organizations that have an interest in teacher preparation. And those institutions that wish to join are supposed to submit a written application saying why they would like to be included here at DARTEP, and then a vote takes place on that application at another meeting, and we either approve or not the person who would like to join. Those associate members are not considered voting members. And so the reason we're bringing this up is that we have in the state of Michigan other types of institutions that prepare teachers that are not four-year institutions. And so the question we'd like you to talk about today when you are in your Java-likes is, should DARTEP consider membership from teacher preparation programs in our state that are not four-year institutions? So as an example, should DARTEP collaborate with alt-route programs and have them attend these meetings? So again, if you would have those conversations at your Java-likes today, you can include those comments when you turn in your notes, and that would be greatly appreciated. Just a reminder that when you register people at DARTEP, that is a different list than the DARTEP listserv. So I do give Brian, as our webmaster, that updated list, and we don't typically take people off, and we're willing to add other people on who would like to be on that list. So that list is separate, and we just wanted to make a reminder to you to make sure that you were aware of that. So you can add your faculty or other people that you would like to receive DARTEP updates. In terms of our expenditures from this fall, our lunch for October was $948 and some change, and our balance is a healthy over $26,000. And again, that is all from the dues that get submitted to DARTEP. And that concludes my portion. I'll turn it back over to Stein for our organization reports.
All right, so the first report we're going to get from MACD, and Jillian Davidson is online. And so this is our first opportunity to see if audio works for our Zoom participants. So Jillian, if you can unmute yourself, and we'll see if we hear you.
Okay, good morning.
It's not coming directly through, but I can maybe move the microphone to the speaker. Go ahead and try talking.
Good morning.
All right, same. I'm getting thumbs up. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. Apologies for not being there in person. I was one of those weather impacted folks, but I'll be brief with our MACD update. Thank you to everyone who joined the Fall 24 Virtual Advocacy Retreat. We had a great turnout, and we're fortunate to learn from Michael Uden, principal at Rabin Group. As part of the grant that MACD received, a series of roundtables and summer advocacy forum will be scheduled in the future. Any institution that would like to host a roundtable, please reach out to MACD President, Dr. Marcia Fetters. Her email address is marcia.fetters@wmich.edu. I'll also put that in the chat. The MACD board is working to create committees to broaden our communication, continue advocacy, plan events such as the Continuous Improvement Conference, and more. If you're interested in serving on any of the MACD committees, you can connect with us at our MACD Facebook page. We also have a LinkedIn page now. And you can email me at jillian.davidson@cmich.edu for more information on how to participate in any of our committees.
Well, thank you, Jillian. So for Michigan Public Deans, I can give that report. Our most recent meeting was really quite a bit like a DARTEP meeting. We had legislative updates from MASU, similar to the updates we get from MDE at these meetings. We had a MACD update as well, and had a good conversation with Sean about alt-route programs and so forth. So it was, like I said, it was quite similar to a DARTEP meeting, really. Is there anyone here from MyPI that wants to give a report for the independent institutions? All right, practicing appropriate wait times, seeing none. Okay, then we can move on to MDE, and we're almost on time.
Slides when I left them yesterday had the correct date on the bottom here, so I don't know if in the transfer up there's the correct date. So very good. Welcome and good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. For those who don't know me, I am Sean Kotke, manager of their Educator Preparation Unit in the Office of Educator Excellence. I'm joined today by several colleagues from MDE, and right around this table we have Bridget McDowell. We have Ahlam Bazi. Sorry, Bazzi. I get that wrong, unfortunately. Gina Garner. Beatrice Harrison, who has not joined us for a while in these meetings. So for those who have been around, very familiar face. You're back. Beth Kubitsky, who promised you was one of our contractors now. I see Jason Kalmbach way in the back. And I see Jenny Dickens right there. And am I missing anybody? There may be some MDE folks online. I see something popped in the chat, so this, they could make themselves apparent. First couple of things. We've got my standard talking points at the beginning. Our written updates that went out earlier this week. Every quarter we get those out. Keep those. We will cover a selection of things that are in those updates today, but spent a lot of time to put a bunch of info in here for you. And it's always available on that on the DARTEP website. And not only is this a really good thing, but we also on our website, someone who's not here, who had been a long time attendee at DARTEP is Dr. Donna Feeblehorn. She passed away earlier this year. And one of her final jobs was working with our department on revamping our website and making sure that we had lots and lots of really good at your fingertips resources, well curated for our ed prep institutions, particularly through the lens of what do CERT officers need to see? What do deans need to see? And things like that. If you have a question, 95% of the questions that you have are answered by some resource on this page. So I encourage you to just bookmark it, go back to it many times. At the back end of the DARTEP written updates is a directory of who's who in MDE and Office of Educator Excellence. You have a question about a topic, can't find the answer there, look there to see who's the person who has that answer. When we met at Siena last December, we did a CERT Officers 101 over lunch. Kind of went through this website, got some feedback on other resources that would be good to attach here and link to. So it's a real legacy to Donna that we have this really good repository of information. And if it's not obvious where something is, or there's a bit of information that you wish were there, just let us know, because we are as committed to continuous improvement as all of you. And we want to make sure that this is a go-to resource for you. And that QR code, of course, can take you there. So, all right, so some legislative updates. I've got some notes on these. Some newly introduced bills. There are two. One is in the House, one's in the Senate, and the one in the House is this bill on licensing examination. Basically says we should accept other states' tests or other tribes' tests for reciprocity. Somebody completed a program out of state, out of country, that the superintendent will approve equivalent examinations for reciprocity with other countries. So figuring out that, and it mandates that the State Board of Education adopt a nationally administered test. So it takes out all of the material in law about competitive bid process and the superintendent selecting from a vendor and having all of that input, and just puts it in the hands of the State Board of Education. You'll see another bill on here, Senate Bill 354. Senate Bill 354 used to have that same language in it. And through our advocacy, and I say our as this whole community, so Beth Kapitsky came and testified along with Marcia Fetters and Ann Jackson. I testified. The bill became more focused on reciprocity. So so the things that are everything except the part about getting rid of going to a national test adopted by the state board. Everything except that is what is in this 354, which is again accepting other states and tribes test reciprocity. But it also says that everybody should have some kind of science of reading test, whether they got it in the other state for their certification, or if they're a PK 3 or 3.6, please take our literacy subtest, because we believe that that is a nice, strong assessment of science of reading and literacy instructional practices. So that's a piece that's in there, and then allows the superintendent to approve equivalent examination for reciprocity with other countries. That bill did pass the Senate. It's gone through 4 substitutions. So I said it had this stuff about adopt a national test and get rid of the bid process. That's gone from that bill, and now it passed the Senate this week. So that's an update beyond what's in your written updates, and now is at the House Education Committee. So energy to that is a bill that we don't support. If you'd like to have a chat about that, happily give you all my talking points and testimony on that. And Bridget will also give you all the good reasons why we would oppose that. This 6107, there's no co-sponsors. It was one legislator in the House that proposed that. I don't expect it's going to get any traction in lame duck, because it's got a lot of places to go. That 354 though may have some traction. So it's passed the Senate. It's now going to the House. The House is very interested in getting a lot of things done because it changes party hands in January. And so that one may go. Another one on the newly introduced bills, so going back, is the Senate Bill 1142 on school counselor professional learning. This was introduced just last week. This reduces the school counselor professional learning that is needed for renewal from 50 hours to 10 hours. So the original, what we have now is 50 hours, 25 in career options, 25 in college counseling, college options, and then somewhere in there 10 hours related to the military. Touching all of those topics is still part of this, but it reduces it down to 10 hours. That was introduced by Senator Polhanke, so she's the chair of the Senate Education Committee, and so that's likely to pick up steam and move through the system in the handful of days they have left in this legislative session. So two others down below, a computer science elective. This is a bill to mandate that all schools have, all high schools offer computer science, and that to the greatest extent possible would be in person rather than online. And there it is. That's about all it says. And follow standards approved by the State Board of Education. And there are standards for K-12 computer science. And then the last is a student teaching stipend for early childhood. This expands the My Future Educator stipend program to include placements in qualified preschool settings. I think it's a good thing and beneficial to our people. And I do thank our colleges and universities who advocated for this because you have people who are doing their student teaching or extensive internships in qualified, publicly funded preschool settings and ought to have the same advantage to earn a wage as our other candidates do. So that one reported out of the Education Committee, so waiting action by the Senate. Bills that were passed and inked by the governor and are now public acts since the last time we met. Public Act 134 changes the teacher probationary period language. It's fairly subtle. It takes out references to highly effective because the evaluation system is effective, and it takes out that the number of evaluations, the 3 evaluations that you need in order to qualify to have ended your probationary period, they don't have to be consecutive. So you have to have taught at least 4 years, and you have to have at least 3 effective, or if before the old system, highly effective evaluations in order to say your probationary period is done. And one of those effectives has to be in the last year that they say, you know, you're going to get off probation if you do a great job this year. And so very subtle change, but it aligns with other changes to the educator evaluation system. And then 567 and 568, which are now public acts, 146 and 147, dyslexia training for pre-service and in-service teachers. We're gonna have a lot to talk to you about or talk with you about today in that, and we hope it's a robust conversation about these requirements, because we have a vision for them that's beyond just simple compliance with the law, and it's about really doing the right thing for a continuum of children across PK-12 in literacy. We will get to a lot of that, but I wanted to point this bit out. I made sure this was the top item of MDE updates in this week's written updates, and that is a free dyslexia summit. It's a virtual summit. It's the Michigan Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, or MIMTSS Technical Assistance Center. It is on January 31st. It's a whole day event, lots of speakers. You can register up to 500, but it will be recorded. So if you're not able to attend live or they run out of spaces, it's going to be recorded and available online. MDE is highly recommended that schools have teams of teachers watch it together and engage with it as a whole. We also encourage our EPPs, particularly anybody who's teaching literacy coursework, any grade level, and whether it's direct teaching children how to read coursework or content area literacy, disciplinary literacy, it would be very relevant to see. And of course, we will share with you the recordings once they are publicly available. The team in the Office of Educational Supports that is organizing this Dyslexia Summit is also doing a series of 3 webinars to just give kind of a basic overview of the 2 laws that are in place for dyslexia. One is today at 3 o'clock, and provided I'm in my home space or somewhere where I'll be there because there's a few slides which are basically the slides that we showed you in October about this. So the bits about MDE requirements for higher ed institutions aren't extensive in this, but learning about dyslexia and the other part of it would be probably very valuable. This webinar will be repeated next Friday and then on January 6th. And we can make sure that we get get that information out to you, how to register and things like that. The primary audience is school administrators to understand their obligations. Because what you have to do in 147 kind of pales in comparison to what schools have to do for 146. That's a much more extensive bill or law. So lots of technical assistance there. Okay, so from the preparation unit, a couple of things. We do need reviewers. We just concluded a crop of or a harvest of applications. And we've got a lot of science and social studies in 59712. We have a few professional sequence applications. We have some mathematics and ELA applications. We also have some administrator applications. And if you are able to serve as a reviewer, please contact us to sign up. And as a reminder, if an institution submits an app, it does have to submit reviewers, so names of reviewers to go with that. Marcy is reaching out to institutions that submitted apps but didn't give us names of reviewers in their intent to offer. So if you haven't gotten one of those messages yet from Marcy through the educator program's email, it'll be coming your way if you haven't nominated anybody. If we don't have a reviewer from your institution, that app goes to the back of the queue until we do get a reviewer. So if you haven't sent them in, send them on in. If you think maybe I forgot to do it, let me just double check. Here's 5 people I know. Go ahead and send an email to educator programs and we'll get you on the list. And I know from past experience that saying this at DARTEP really yields a nice flood of emails to that box. All right, so we're going to talk MTTC for several minutes now. The first thing I'll talk about, and then I'll pass it to Bridget to come and talk to you more in depth. But your MTTC data, so the annual and the 3-year cumulative testing data that we send out to you every year, that went out in November. If nobody at your institution knows who got it, please let Dana know, Dana Utterback. Utterback D at michigan.gov, and she's listed in the contacts. If you didn't receive it, or to know who at your institution received it. We know there's a lot of turnover. We know there's a lot of people changing roles. So, we try to keep up with that as best we can. So if it went to somebody who it shouldn't have gone to, we need to know who it should go to. All of that information becomes public. Annual legislative reports are available on our Educator Workforce Research webpage. So every year, the legislature by November 30th, this year, November 30th, falling on a Saturday, we got it out on December 2nd. they get a report of everything from the previous year that has done, including all those 1-year reports that you get from us. That's all compiled, that's available. We have every year's report on the website. And then the 3-year cumulative reports, we used to put them in a PowerPoint document that had, I don't know, 100, 200 tables. It was huge. And now we have our beautiful educator workforce data report dashboard. And that data is uploaded into that system. And you can dig around in it, and it's a beautiful place to dig. That data probably won't be up there until January, is my understanding. But it has saved us an immense amount of work in document production to simply put numbers in a table. We get the data from Pearson, and it goes up into that system. Okay, test prep presentations. Turn it over to Bridget for the next few slides. There.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bridget McDowell, and I'm responsible for the MTTC program. And I am so excited to offer to come speak to your candidates about MTTC test prep so that you don't have to if you don't want to. I've come to talk to places in person. We did a virtual session with faculty at Ferris a week or two ago. Things that I tend to talk about are, why do I need to take a test? Which tests or tests do I take and when? A bunch of what happens, accommodations, stuff like that. What do they do when they pass? So I'll talk about the certificate that they get and the endorsements. And then we spend most of the time talking about what's on the test, how do you find high quality test materials, what should you avoid? And then we touch on financial assistance. I do my best to customize it to whatever content area or areas those students are getting trained in, recognizing that I'm not an expert in all of these things. Yeah, I've been really glad to go already to Wayne State, Ferris, SVSU. MMARC is going to have me come in January to talk to their candidates. And Sean and I went to MEA's conference for aspiring educators. So, and I think I just got an email from Holly about coming to Ferris again. So really excited. Please just email me and let me know. And I'm happy to work with you or your faculty on whatever it is that meets the needs of those specific students. Try to lighten your load a bit. As a reminder, we retired several tests in the last few years. The oldest one that we've retired, the first one I experienced retiring, was the old learning disabilities test. It was MI063. That last test was available December 1st of 2019, which means that anybody who's taken that MI063 test, their scores are now older than 5 years, which means that if they passed it, but they didn't apply, they can't use that passing score because there's been a significant update to that learning disabilities field. And that's our policy. So we have other fields where this is coming up. But good news is that there's time. So the old cognitive impairments, the old emotional impairments, those both retired in July of 21. So in July of 26, if you have candidates who took those old tests but didn't apply, they're going to be in that same spot where they're going to have to take the new test. And that's really unfortunate. Same with ESL, industrial tech, bilingual ed, and of course the giant one that these are all kind of practice for is the 103 test. And 106. Those are expiring in almost 2 years from now. And then those scores will be good until 31, which feels like forever. But there will be people who will come to you with an old score that they can't use. And then they're going to be mad because they have to take another test, right? So what we're encouraging you to do is to go through your records and try to find these people. I know it's a lot, but to find people who have done everything except for apply, and please encourage them to apply. It's, similar to like kind of closing out an endorsement, but we're closing out a test. And for somebody who exited their program 5+ years ago to have to go take another test, nobody wants to do that. Are there questions on that? There's a table that lists all of these fields and the expiration dates in the MDE written updates. And it's been in there for a while. I'm sure you've all seen it. Oh yeah, I've been getting like just a couple kind of questions that I wanted to take a minute to go through. The test fee reimbursement grant up and running, very excited. Thank you, government, for giving us a ton of money to keep this going. There are 4 things that candidates need to do to get their grant. It's supposed to be super easy. They go to the MTTC website, they go to their My Account and log in, then they scroll down to the test fee reimbursement grant application, and then there's like a space for them to manage and apply for grants from there. This is an example, like a screenshot, so you can see where I clumsily labeled those 4 steps. I put this here as a reference in case you get candidates who ask you about how they can get their grant reimbursement. And of course, they can always contact me too. They do. Score report. So Pearson hosted a session about Results Analyzer just before Thanksgiving break, and a couple EPPs had questions about candidates trying to get duplicate copies of their score reports sent. And they, okay, I'm seeing some head nods, and they were having trouble figuring out how to get it to their EPP. So again, they go, here's like the steps. They go to the MTTC website, they go to My Account and log in, they go to view scores and testing history, score report request form is like a link, and then there's 4 steps. On step 3, what I think candidates are not doing is they may not be scrolling down, especially if they're on like a mobile device, this might be a problem, to send to institution. Send to self is the default, and that's included whether they want to send it to an institution or not. But they have to click send to an institution, and then they have to choose you from that dropdown. If you have somebody who wants to send out of state, like they're, choosing to abandon us for Illinois for some reason, they don't send to an institution. Illinois or whatever state agency is not an option. They have to send to themselves. They have to call Pearson's customer service, request a physical hard copy be mailed to them, and then they can mail that hard copy, that sealed copy of their scores, to wherever. So they get extra work because they don't want to stay here. Are there questions about either of these? Okay, hopefully these screenshots are, helpful, and please feel free to like copy and paste that and send it to your candidates. So I saw that I was an agenda item talking about MTTC resources on the website. I'm so excited that somebody has asked for this. So there are a couple like newer things. I think we've covered a lot of the basics about, the test objectives and sample questions and whatever. But the practice tests that you can purchase or faculty can purchase has been relocated on the MTTC website in the last few months. So I just wanted to talk about that. That QR code goes directly to the page where you can purchase a practice test, or your faculty can purchase a practice test. It is, what do you get? It's 80% the length of an actual test. The reason for that is because on an actual test, 20% of the items are non-scorable. I think we've gone over this at this conference too, or at the HOPE conference, but continuous improvement, sorry. But 20% are like embedded field test items. That's the gold standard for test development. That's how you make new forms. So when you go through a practice test, it's important to be mindful that you budget your time. So that if you're going through 80% of the items, like the length of a form, you're giving yourself 80% of the allotted time. I strongly recommend that you save a local copy. You'll have access to it through your MTTC account for 2 years, but 2 years goes by fast. You can purchase it online for $19, so it's not that expensive. And you can also get one for free if your faculty are willing to serve on a content advisory committee and a CAC, or our equity and access committee, or EAC. They receive a voucher for a free practice test, and they get one every time they serve. So if you have faculty who want to know more about a bias in the MTTC program and preventing that and identifying that before it gets to candidates, EAC is a great place to go. We have multiple meetings a year, like at least 6. So if they served on that every time, they could get 6 practice test vouchers, which is awesome. In addition to getting a practice test voucher, you get an honorarium every time you serve on an MTTC committee. You get sketches if you want that. You get networking, and the K-12 folks are so excited to get to meet folks from higher ed. It's really good professional development. And of course, you get to shape the direction of the MTTC program, so it's exciting. The other big thing that is on the website, which is kind of new, are correlation tables. The QR code goes to the correlation tables that Pearson has recently made. Again, these are new within, I'd say, the last 6 months. 28 test fields are available with these correlation tables. And what it is they're just very simple tables. On one column, it lists the objectives for a given test field, and the other column says the state standards that align to that objective. So, you know, it's not like rocket surgery, but it's very handy, and it's meant to save you a lot of time, so that you don't have to do this, because, you know, your courses are based on these standards and the test objectives are based on these standards. So it's meant to be like a fully aligned kind of triangular system of figuring out how, you know, candidates are doing poorly in one area of the test. How can we figure out what classes they were meant to have covered this in? I'm going to go through some examples of this. So this, I just pulled this, I made it the table because it looks nicer. But this is from 118, so the pre-K3 literacy subtest. These are the test objectives for sub-area 2. If you remember at DARTEP in December last year, I think at Siena Heights, I walked through some kind of early statewide data about the different tests, and we noticed that sub-area 2 of pre-K3 literacy is statewide a pretty, you know, performing lower than other sub areas for the pre-K3 3-6 tests. So this is what you would find on the website. You can see sub area 2 is going to cover objectives 5 through 10, and then the alignment is pretty direct. They cover 1, maybe 2 standards per objective. This makes sense so far, right? Cool. So what I did was some very simple data analysis. Everything I did, I pulled from Results Analyzer. This is actual data from one of our EPPs. So if you want to pretend that this is you, there's a 1 in whatever 20-some chance that it might be. So this is somebody's actual data from the 118 test. From sub-area 1, you can see their students' sub-area means. Then I compared it to statewide. I filtered for eligible only because I think Brian just sent an email about what do you do with this noise in your MTTC data. That's one thing you can do, is filter for eligible only. And you can see, like, statewide, they're kind of on track, right? Like that 2.7 mean for the sub area 2, that's not that different from what we talked about this time last year. It's the weakest area, and it is the weakest area for this EPP. I think it's really interesting that it's the weakest by like 0.7 right? This is clearly a spot where some investigation, some kind of, looking at needs to happen. I also pulled from Results Analyzer their first attempt pass rate. And again, it's not very different from statewide. It's a little less. We're talking about a couple dozen candidates, so, take that into consideration. And the mean skilled score. So all of this can get pulled from Results Analyzer. It took me like 10 minutes. And most of that was just picking an EPP. So are there questions about this data or where it came from? If you attended, Jason earlier this month hosted one of his webinars about how to understand and use your data. We walked through how you can go to Results Analyzer and get these kinds of reports. The top came from the sub-area report in there, and the bottom was just the pass rate report. And Nancy from Pearson also had a similar session covering that kind of content last week. So those are great. So how does this relate to the tables? So what you can do with that is I went and I looked at their program matrix. As you remember, when you applied for your program for pre-K 3 and 3-6, your EPP had to submit a matrix of, here's all the courses and here's how we're going to hit the objectives at the, introductory, developing, and whatever the third level is, sorry, demonstrating. Thank you, Gina. So what I did was I went through that EPP's matrix. I found all the courses that include objectives. I'm going back to, that included all of these standards, right? So any class that was tagged to L6, L7, L8A, L9, L15, L10, 11, and 12, right? So again, I just went to information that already exists, and I found the courses. These are not real names, obviously, but yeah, so they have 5 classes that include these. The bold ones, and it's a lot of content. I didn't have a better way of describing this, but the bold ones are the objectives that map to sub-area 2, and everything else are literacy objectives that they said are mapped to this course. And then they also threw in, some of the professional standards. They said those were also found in some of these courses. And then there was one that had a professional and a math objective tied to it. In addition to these 5 courses, there are 5 more courses in their program that said that they involve some kind of literacy standard. And then in addition to that, so of the 10 courses, 5 of them touch on objectives for sub-area 2. And then in addition to those 10 courses, they said that student teaching touches on every literacy objective. And I don't remember the name of it, but the course that goes along with student teaching, where you meet with your cohort, that class also touches on all the literacy objectives and like all the math and all the science, et cetera. Does it make sense where this came from? Okay, I had to make that, but that was just me mapping, matching. So I don't, maybe, can somebody help me with if there's like chat comments? I don't have a way to monitor chat on this screen. Okay, cool. So what I'd like to do is take a couple minutes, maybe if you want to talk at your table, and those who are on chat, if they want to use the chat feature, to just say like, okay, so if this were your EPP, because it's somebody, and there are a few EPPs with similar profiles, data profiles, if this were your EPP, like what would you want to talk about with your faculty? Like what things would you want to ask them, the faculty who are teaching these courses? What other data would you want to know? Those are the only 2 questions I came up with, but if we could maybe take a couple minutes and talk at tables, and we can come back at like 10 o'clock.
Part of this. Yeah. So she's one of my co-workers. I can message her offline and figure out exactly. She's in the same. I'd love to see who wrote it.
Okay.
I see who wrote it.
Okay, so there was one really good question in chat that Brian's gonna help me follow up with. Does anybody want to talk about or share what they discussed at their table? Kenny's like, no. You're from MDE, so you don't count. Yeah.
At the University of Michigan Year Board, we do during our everyday faculty meetings that meet once a month, we do a data trip. And during that 30-minute time slot, we go through and analyze some set of data. So we're thinking about the next step of this would be to share with our colleagues kind of overarching what the MCPC data has shown and why we're doing this in an overarching way. And then break off into small groups to then look at it discipline specific with our MCPC data. We make a point to have that data and get it ready over analysis, or in this example would be discipline specific. But that seems to, and then talk about and brainstorm what that scope and sequence looks like, where those standards are being taught, how we can emphasize them more within our instruction.
Thank you.
So, as you mentioned, there was one question online. It would be helpful to get error returns from results analyzer if we can't see granular data, meaning for all MTTC scores across the state. We can get, at an institution, we can get, how did she word it? We can see the variance that's happening at our institution, but we'd like to get some really more granular information for statewide data sets. And if that makes no sense or any sense, I can get more details later and ask the question.
Yeah, so like kind of figuring out more about the spread, like if the statewide mean for some sub area is 3, does that mean that half people are getting 4s and half of them are getting 2s and nobody's actually getting a 3, like that kind of question? That's a really good question. I don't know how we haven't gotten that before. Thank you. I'll have to check. I'll have to talk with Pearson about that. I don't know.
So not here, anyway. So we were discussing ways to basically take these out of faculty as well, and do a very granular look at the course assignments and course activities, backwards mapping it from the MTTC's area performances. So being able to look and see how are students doing, especially over a longer period of time, on sub areas, and using this sort of correlation to the crosswalk, being able to say like, oh, this is the portion that is most directly lined up with that. We did all of that when we put together our program applications and agencies, but I think revisiting that with specific outcome data would be particularly powerful instead of just thinking at the conceptual level, this course addresses this, here's the assessments that we think we could go with this, but to look not just at the sort of design, but the actual outcome of it, see how our students are performing on those various tests, see how that connects to the courses, and look to see if there's anything that needs to do to work on assignments so that they're better prepared for those particular sub areas.
One thing I would say, we talked about our table, is that we acknowledge that these are difficult conversations to have, right? Because how do you sit down with faculty, have a conversation like this, and not come off telling me like, the students aren't doing well because you're not teaching, you're not doing a good job teaching their class, right? So figuring out ways to have those conversations that don't sound accusatory, and not that I have a solution for that, but to present it in a way that this is all about continuous improvement and making sure that we're putting out the most qualified teachers that we can put out, right? And so part of that is reflecting on our own practice and what we're doing and looking at the data, just like we ask our students, when we give them feedback on their teaching or their assignments, reflect on their own practice. We need to do the same thing. So, which is easier said than done sometimes.
We talked about too, the purchasing the test to look at how the wording.
The practice test?
The practice test, so that we can see the wording, because sometimes it's how things are worded and are we preparing our students look at the wording, not just knowing the content, because sometimes wording will make cause you have errors.
Yeah, that's actually something that I go over when I give presentations to students, which I talked about at the beginning of my section, is that we'll go over some sample questions, just ones I pulled from, the online study guides. It's not like secret. But yeah, the wording is really important because sometimes, there's a person in a role that exists in that item that they have to pay attention to, whether or not that kind of, they had a school counselor where they did their student teaching, right? You have to think about the reality as it exists on the page, on the screen. You won't see a lot of egregious, fireable things, and the wrong answer. You've served on our committees. So it's really, thinking about what best answers the question that you're being asked. Totally. I agree with what Stein said too about this is meant to be continuous improvement. MTTC is not meant to be a punishment for your candidates. It's not a money grab for Pearson. I'm not getting rich off of this, right? So, its purpose is to protect the public, right? It's to protect the students and children in Michigan, to make sure that they have teachers who meet or exceed, the minimum that many of you in this room have contributed to defining at our standard setting conferences. So that's what this is for. And candidates just may not be ready yet. Like, that's important to talk about. Yeah, my thoughts when I was looking at this is like, man, some of these courses are covering a lot of information. And those are a lot of courses. I can't imagine one person's covering all 5 of those classes. So, thinking, I think what others had talked about, what's the consistency that's getting shared in terms of the content? How's that being shared amongst your faculty and understood so that candidates get a solid message? Is there anything else from like chat that?
There was one other comment or question. Has anyone done a correlation study between when MTTC testing started and its impact on whether K-12 students are doing better as a result of teachers having to be tested?
Well, the program started in the 90s, 1992. I don't know if that sounds like something that like Epic or Cephii would have done, and I don't have the answer to that. I know they sometimes want to get candidates like scaled scores and say that candidates who got a 270 or above, investigate whether your scaled score and passing impacts students, but there's a lot of other things. I'm not aware of a study to answer the question. I thought of 3 other things that are tangentially related while y'all were talking that I want to share before I leave. Some advantages of having a custom program, like state-specific program like we do, is that this kind of alignment between the test and the courses already exists. I would not imagine many of you want to start over in doing this kind of homework that Pearson's already done for you and making these correlation tables if we had some kind of significant change to our tests. The data access is relatively easy, and we've been really lucky to have people like Jason make time for us to have these webinars to talk about how to use Results Analyzer. Pearson is very accessible and happy to meet with you to talk about ways to use Results Analyzer. They come to the Continuous Improvement Conference. They did the webinar last week. Like, we really get a lot of bang for our buck with our bespoke state-specific program. So I think the next slide is for Gina. So, thank you.
Morning, everyone. Just to kind of piggyback on what Bridget was just talking about, excuse me. Please remember that Results Analyzer is so critical. Like, when you're rolling up into your accreditation visit, you want to use year by year. You don't want to use your 3-year summary. That doesn't, if you hand your accreditation team a 3-year summary, that's 1 data point. It is not 3 cycles. That's 1 cycle, because you get that 3-year summary. And the 3-year summary doesn't really tell you what you really need to know. So you want to make sure you're getting 3 clear cycles of that MTTC data for that visit team and for that visit, not those summaries. They will turn around and say, what else do you have? And you want your most recent cycle of data for that as well, because teams are going to be like, where's your most recent cycle of data? And because you have Results Analyzer and you can find out who tested last week, you should always have a very recent cycle of data for your MTTC scores. That should just be, that's like Bridget said, that's our gift to you, is that you have that real-time information. And so I really think using that Results Analyzer more and utilizing that is going to be really beneficial, especially those of you who are coming up to visits. So I just wanted to kind of piggyback on the amazing the amazing amount of data that we give you, really should be the base of what you put together for that visit. It should really start with that state data and then build from there. All right, so I just want to piggyback on that. This is a reminder because I work with your art programs, I work with your music programs. And I'm more concerned about those two programs than a lot of others because they are often very separate from you all. They're often in a different college. They often have a different accreditor and may not be as connected as you think they are. And this is going to be a surprise if you don't directly communicate with them. That all of these art and music, we won't have new standards by we will have new standards, sorry. By next January, we should have new art standards and we should be very close to new music standards by next January. But programs will have not started revising. Programs will not start revising until like spring of 26. Your PK-12 candidates are going to have to start taking the PKS in January of 26. So that can't be rolled into their revision. You need to start communicating with them now that those candidates are going to have to take 2 tests as of January 26. And we've told you this before, but I really want to emphasize it because when I communicate with your music or art programs, this isn't on their radar yet. And so I want to encourage a much more deliberate engagement with those programs so that they get that on their radar. And you can assure that candidates that are exiting those programs in a year are going to be able to take that PKS. Now, our PKS test is, those tests are great. Candidates who have completed your programs have been doing well on those tests. So you're doing a really good job of teaching those skills. The other piece to remember is that, PK-12 and K-12, and this also includes special ed. Thank you, Gina. This also includes special ed. Those special ed candidates are going to have to start taking this too next January. Because they have a multiple grade range, they can choose. We don't have a K-12 test. We have PK 3, 6, 5, 9, 7, 12. They need to choose one of those. And we're encouraging, them to, what's the area, what's the grade range that you spent the most time in your clinical experiences? Because the PKS really reflects those pieces that they do in those clinical experiences a lot. So where are they most comfortable? With what grade range are they really most comfortable? That's the grade range they should choose for the PKS test. So we don't have, I have individuals that kind of reach out to me, but I do not have a list of the contacts for these art and music programs. I kind of do with special ed, and I'm going to be engaging with special ed this spring and bringing special ed together again for a full day summit this spring. So we can kind of work on it there, but just start thinking about, as an EPP, as a provider, how are you communicating this information so that nobody's kind of caught surprised by that whole thing. And again, visual arts, we think we're going to take the new visual arts standards to the board in March. And I think I have a slide about this in a minute. And the music will probably be next fall because they're still working on those standards. All right. I have great news. Great news. We originally said that MOEX was going to start looking for those administrator tests in January of 25. We have discovered that we need more time to make that happen. So what we're doing is extending. Right now, it's a good faith effort. The test is available, but when someone applies for certification, MOEX will not look for that test. You can start having people use vouchers to take tests, though, because that gives you direct feedback, MTTC-wise, as to how candidates are really learning in your program. So we're excited, that we're providing for these administrator programs a content assessment that can really work for that standard 3. How do you know they're competent in completion? So we're excited about that. But what happened is, we're going to go ahead and have a good faith effort all the way to September-ish. We need to pick the date. We're thinking it's September 25. Candidates just need to come and take the test. The good faith effort looks and, they didn't draw Bart Simpson in the, outline. Like they actually tried to answer the questions. They made a good faith effort because there's a constructed response. They actually have to write things in this test as well. So we're just looking for a good faith effort through August. So it's important to what's really important and what we really want to emphasize, and we have this in the written update. And then that was yesterday, I sent a whole other communication yesterday, is that if you have candidates that have completed these administrator programs anytime up until this summer, and they have not applied for certification, get them in and have them apply for certification before fall 25. Get them in now. Somebody who completed 3 years ago, it's not going to do you any good for them to take the test. Just get them in and get them certified. And then, candidates you have that have completed these new revised programs based on the NELPs, you might want to give them a voucher and see if they feel like taking the test, because that will give you feedback. But for now, we're really encouraging you, look through those rosters, look through who's completed those programs, reach out to them if they have not achieved certification, and get them a cert by the end of August is what we're really. So for now, MOEX is not going to look at a test when they apply for certification, not going to look for it until fall of 25. Yes, Lisa.
You're saying use a voucher, are they not eligible if it's the first time taking that for a reimbursement?
I think that they are eligible to get the voucher yes, we did add 139 and 140 to the list of stuff for candidates to get the reimbursement, but we've set aside $11 for candidates to use these vouchers, so they really should be talking about that.
So to repeat the question was, are the administrator candidates eligible for the other testing money we have available? And they are, but we literally have a chunk of money explicitly set aside just for the administrators, and we're trying to spend it by the end of our contract. So help us spend money. Help us spend money. And yeah, well, let's churn through that one. Yes.
Program fiscal year 24, right? In September we ran out. So to have administrators who could have used the voucher pulling from that fund might end up meaning somebody who's going for their, pre-K 3 or elementary, for kindergarten, they don't have money.
Okay, yeah. Yep, that's a good point. Bridget is saying that last year, because we had the same grant last year, we ran out of money in September before we get the refresh in October, right? And so we ran out of money before we could get the refresh. So, if you use the other money we have for everybody, for the administrators, it might take away from someone who's in an elementary program completing, and if we run out of money and they're not able to do it. So use the administrator money as much as you can, and then save that other piece for your other programs. Yes. Right. Is that the next? Yeah. Your voucher, you just need to use it for registration. You use the voucher to register. And then, you say, okay, I want to register for this test. Here's my voucher. And then once you're registered and it uses the voucher, then you've got a year to schedule that test. It's sitting in there waiting, and that candidate has a year to find a time and a location that works for them. So get the vouchers and get them registered. And then they can, you could have somebody use a voucher to register in early March, but then they can wait and sign up to take the test in September or October. So for your people who are going to be applying for certification in the fall and are going to miss the no test deadline, you can have them use those vouchers to register in the spring. And then they sign up for the test time within a year. Does that make sense? That works for both? Okay. What we're what we're really pushing is the benefits of these administrator tests. That candidate benefit for them taking it in this, when they don't have to, is that it's kind of a low bar for passing, because it's good faith effort. It's not the committee recommended cut score. And it's free with that voucher. Also, that if you have someone take it between now and the summer for that, good faith effort, that still counts as a test for 5 years. So you can still use that in the future. Again, we recommend that between 80 and 90% of a program is completed before you have someone test for it. But typically it's internship time when these administrators, once people are in that internship and really kind of cranking through their internship, that's probably a decent time to kind of encourage them to take it. The benefits for programs, again, is for accreditation. Our administrator programs have had to come up with their own assessment for whether candidates are ready for certification, competency at completion, standard 3. So this allows you to start really drawing on that information through results analyzer, that you get that real-time data and really start looking at that program and how effective that program is at really instructing candidates for the standards. We have a plea for you. What we've noticed, and we've been trying to work with having initial accreditation support and advanced accreditation support. And what we found is that, a lot of times that accreditation person really focuses on the initial, which is a big lift. It's a huge lift. And then you're identifying someone from the administrator program and someone from the reading specialist program to shoulder the burden for that entity to go through. But what we're finding is those people aren't CAPE oriented or AQUIP oriented or CAPE trained. It's more CAPE than AQUIP because AQUIP standards are the same across advanced and initial. And they end up being kind of deer in the headlights when it comes to the visit, because they don't have the systems and they don't know how to put the systems together, and they're trying, but they really need the benefit of your CAPE trained accreditation coordinator. They need you. I know it's hard. And what I know is hard is that these advanced programs, they're very independent from you. And a lot of times you don't have any control, they don't have to do what you say. But what we're finding is that, especially those completely different college programs, they're kind of trying to do their own thing. And then when they pull it into accreditation, it isn't working as well because they're not tuned in. So what we're really asking is make sure that as your accreditation coordinator is working with those initial programs, to find a way to draw in those advanced programs as well, and help those advanced programs really understand what's going on with the process and what they need. Because I think it's been really difficult for some of our advanced programs, especially the farther removed they are from the School of Ed, the harder it is for them because they're not used to this type of accreditation. So we're really just, if you have an advanced accreditation coordinator, make sure it's a trained person. Make sure that, and make sure that they're mindful of how those systems go, because what the other piece we're seeing that I think is a huge challenge for advanced accreditation is that even though those advanced programs are all separate, you still have to produce a system. There's got to be a way to pull all that together and learn from it across that advanced system. And you get an accreditation determination for the whole system, not, you don't get a separate one for administrator and a separate one for reading specialist. It's for the whole system. And so when you're leaving them to come up with their own things, it's not a system, it's not connected, it's not looked at together. And it makes it very challenging for your visit team to really put it all together. So, think about that as you're moving forward, especially those of you, because in about a year's time, we've got kind of a light year this, in 2025, but 2026, there are a lot of you going back through CAPE in 2026. And so, this is just kind of a nice, let's think about this now as you're rolling into starting to think about your next self-study.
Okay, some recognition notes. So this is straight from the written updates. We have new Proud Michigan Educator videos in that campaign. We launch about one per month. And so these are two of them. The links are there, and the links are in your written updates. And one that is the most recent that's not listed here is on an outdoor classroom in Algonquin Elementary School. So those are pretty cool. Then the talent pool, this is one of our ways of recognizing talented teachers. And we're having a kind of advisory group of teachers in the field for engaging with, for running ideas by, for getting feedback. This is beyond our Michigan Teacher Leadership Advisory Council. And a link to recommend people for the talent pool is on the slide, of course, and in the written updates. All right, job fairs, as we have them coming up here next semester. The virtual ones in March, one in May, with the candidate registration links that you can share. And I don't know if it got mentioned last time because I believe, but we are also interested in partnering with you on the job fairs that you sponsor. So we've done that with Central Michigan University successfully in the past, and with some of our alternative route providers. So we're always eager to join in and support those in any way that we can. Jennifer Roble, our department manager over special projects with Proud Michigan Educator Campaign, coordinates those. So there you go. Recruitment and retention. And I saw on the notes on this from Jenny that said, here are notes for Sean, but which I can speak to, or I can invite Jenny to come up and speak to them. So very good.
Thanks, John. I wasn't totally sure that I was going to make it today, but here I am. So happy to take the mic for just 2 slides. Hi, everybody. For those who haven't met me, I'm Jenny Dickens. I am the Grow Your Own consultant for MDE. I am in my second year, wrapping up my second year. And so is this grant wrapping up its second year. We are finishing up we just finished up the first phase of this grant. All of awards have been made. All reallocations have been finalized. That initial flurry of activity has now come to a close. So we will not have any new districts awarded. But with those reallocations, we shifted funds from districts who did not expect to be able to spend them all, those who needed a little bit more. So what that means for you all is we ask you to watch for those districts who might be adding cohorts or who might be identifying new needs, and maybe reaching out to EPPs to see how they might meet those needs with their additional funds or their adjusted cohorts. There also might be new EPP agreement requests coming from our round 3 awardees who were awarded back in September and who are have been building momentum and designing their programs over the past couple months and are now looking at enrolling folks starting this coming semester or the semester following, or again, those who have received reallocation funds. The last bullet point here is that unfortunately the expenditure deadline is firm. It's a deadline determined by the U.S. Treasury, and there is no wiggle room there. But we would like to remind everybody that deadline, so November 29th, 2026 is the deadline for district reimbursements from the grant. So I know that some EPPs have been working with their business offices and with the district's business offices to develop billing plans with the districts to try and accommodate that deadline the best that they can for those participants who might need some extra time beyond 2026. So again, that is a local decision and your decision, but that is something that we have been hearing. So that's for that 27B grant. For our 504 grant, which is the Grow Your Own Explore, we are currently reviewing and pending awards for the fiscal year 25. We're pretty excited that we're able to award this a lot earlier than we were last year. Looking at a February award date, that's our estimate. The goals remain the same: to support districts in building career exploration programs for their grades 6 through 12 students, using the Explore curriculum that was designed and provided by MDE. And then also, this was new as of last year, tuition support for those graduates of those District Explore programs as they begin their exploration of that career in college. So for those who have not yet been admitted to an EPP, we identified a sort of gap there of financial support. So that's what we hope that these funds can do. So what that means for you all is that we ask for you to look for contact and outreach, or continue supporting the districts that you're working with to help create these student programs, and also to talk about course articulation for that tuition support grant, and then also to make payment arrangements. So we thank you for all you've done already, and we're looking forward to what this grant and what these districts can do together with you to grow the teacher workforce in Michigan. Thanks. Back to you, Sean.
Okay, oops, here we go, electric. Very good. Okay, I wanted to take some moment. We've kind of eaten into the time, but there's good questions, lots of content into dyslexia requirements and what we're expecting as far as the documentation and the application process and the timeline, and then give any time that we have to some conversation. As I articulated last time and earlier today, we have a goal, a big, hairy, ambitious goal of an aligned continuum of literacy teacher preparation across our institutions, so that you're all singing from the same songbook across all endorsement areas, PK through 12, so that what's occurring in your PK3 programs and in your 3-6 programs carries over into your 5-9 programs and your 7-12 programs, and will eventually carry over into a literacy specialist when we revise those standards and reconfigure that. So we expect we see this as a golden opportunity to engage in that reflection. To what extent do you have this consistent continuum of preparation across all grade bands? And we're piggybacking a lot of this into the disciplinary literacy preparation standards application, which Acham sent out at the end of our last DARTEP meeting. It went to, I believe, to deans and directors. Yes. It wasn't to the whole DARTEP listserv. Okay. Yeah, deans, directors, associate deans, assistant deans, those who are in leadership positions. So if you didn't see it yet, that means somebody at your institution received it. And we can obviously help you out with figuring out who, and Acham can help you with that. And what we've included in that application are a couple of things. One is looking at the reading diagnostics coursework. A lot of these haven't been reviewed in 15 years. Do the math, 16 years, something like that, since they were originally approved. And we know that many institutions, to beef up the literacy preparation coursework in the PK3 grade band, relocated the diagnostics coursework and integrated it into that program. Fantastic. That's great. And you're probably hitting a lot of the dyslexia standards through that. Another great thing. Well, we want to check that. We want to make sure that that's what's happening here. So we have some guidance in the application for reviewing what you have in your reading diagnostic coursework and reporting any updates. And then we will include more guidance on implementing that PA 147 requirements for the preparation of candidates in dyslexia. And in this will report it. Now, the first application that we have out is due next June, so June 30, 2025. But it's not the final word on things. And so we have this neat graphic that Aklam has prepared to show kind of the continuum of literacy preparation in our standards. The disciplinary literacy preparation standards application, part A, and it's questions 1 through 5, looks at your, it challenges you to see how are you addressing those standards? How are you assessing them? And then what changes as you reflected on this? What changes have you made to other programs like the PK3 and the 3.6 as you've looked at these standards? And what's nice about this diagram is you can see, and I guess I can't really walk around, I'll be away from the mic. What you can see is the overlap, right? If you're preparing students, looking at the disciplinary literacy standards for grades 5-9 and for grades 7-12, and you're thinking of 5-9 just by itself, well, note how that overlaps significantly with the 3.6 grade band. We would expect some thoughtful attention to that within your 3.6. We look at PK3 being literacy foundations. You're preparing teachers to really address the foundations of literacy. In grades 3 through 6, it's shift to literacy achievement and use of literacy. I hate using the learn to read to learn continuum, but that's if you need that kind of simple way of looking at it, that's what it is. And then it picks up in 5-9 and 7-12, and each of those grade bands, what children are expected to do with literacy and use literacy to learn continues expanding throughout it. So many institutions we know are not offering a 5-9 grade band at all. And that's an institutional choice. We respect that. But if you don't, you'll lose an opportunity to see where the 3.6 then connects to the 7-12 in a continuum of literacy preparation. We want to bring together the programs, to bring together your literacy faculty here who are teaching across this whole system to ensure that they are consistent. And I am a literacy advocate. I'm a past president of Michigan Reading Association, guided the development of ELA and literacy standards here. So I know where there are disagreements on your campuses. And where there are people who they hear science of reading and they turn the other way. And we're here to help you with understanding, not you pull the political buzzwords out of it, what is right for children. And our whole mission with our whole cert structure is understanding individual children and their needs and being able to take them to the next level. And our literacy standards do that. And these dyslexia pieces have an enhancement to that work. So as you're doing this application, but part A is really looking at those disciplinary literacy standards. Where do they fall within your program? How are you addressing them? Are you doing them in standalone classes? Are you integrating it across multiple classes? Where in your sequence is it? And did you have any changes to 3.6 and PK3 as a result? Because there are elements of disciplinary literacy within those standards. Part B, question 6, is looking at reading diagnostic and remediation. You're simply asked to confirm, is our reckoning of your classes still accurate? And do you have updates? You know, do you have any updates to this? Pretty simple and straightforward thing to do. And then layered into this is the dyslexia legislation requirements. And as I shared on the slide last time, there are a set of 4 understandings that all programs, regardless of content area, regardless of grade band, regardless of whether it's a traditional or an alternative route program, have to address. Everybody has to come out with these understandings. And these are really about understanding what dyslexia is. What are the characteristics of it? What are the primary characteristics? How would you see this in your classroom? What are the secondary characteristics? What are the social and emotional implications of dyslexia? And so this is what's for all teachers, regardless of any of that. One of the things we're going to be looking at when we do our applications is seeing if this appears in all of the programs, right? Because this could be interspersed throughout multiple classes, say in PK3, and that's really great for PK3. Now, how about what's happening with our arts teachers, our music teachers, our PE teachers, our 5-9 teachers, 7-12 teachers for that? And so question 7 has its 2 parts. One is about how you're addressing all of those pieces in all the programs. And then the second part is how are you addressing the 2 very specific elements that are required for anybody teaching elementary, reading, English language arts, special education, or school psychologists. And these are 2 sections on evidence-based practice. For supporting children, for recognizing reading difficulties, and remediating those reading difficulties. You have some narrative questions where you talk about it, and then you have a matrix also. And the matrix looks very much like all our other matrices that looked. In fact, it looks kind of like an old school matrix, the kind that MDE gave out 20 years ago. Where does this happen? Describe where and how it happens in your program, and then describe how you know that candidates are becoming proficient in those elements. So we can have that all set. So this timeline, and this integrates a few things into the timeline. Starting next week, we'll have some registration opening for a series of webinars, workshops, collaborative working sessions on implementing the disciplinary literacy standards. On our website is a great video with our friends from University of Michigan, and we have Janelle. Yeah, Janelle from University of Michigan, and yeah. Okay.
That will be coming out,
All right, for those online, we have multiple EPPs, faculty members participating in these webinars to talk about how they're integrating the disciplinary literacy standards across their secondary programs, and to share wisdom from the field. And we have multiple representatives in that. And so June 30, 2025, first thing, that application is due, and you have to have responses to both parts A and part B. So the parts on disciplinary literacy standards and the parts on the dyslexia bill. You're going to get feedback then on implementation of that disciplinary literacy standards. Thinking about your course of study, hopefully launching in fall 2025, but I understand if you've got other semesters, but our goal is to review those very quickly and get you feedback and determination letters. So if you remember the last time we asked for documentation about your secondary content area literacy classes in 2007, like 2008. Nobody got any feedback. I know, because I filled out these applications and I sent them to the state, and I came to work for the state and I found my applications. And I found some of the peer review feedback, and I thought, well, this would have been helpful to have received 7 years ago. So anyway, we're not going to do that again. We're going to get you a determination letter approving your disciplinary literacy course study. And then the next thing is we're going to give you feedback on the dyslexia plan. So your course of study, your plan for addressing the dyslexia standards in alignment with those legislative requirements. We're taking this slow so that, I mean, it seems aggressive because it's like, well, that's less than a year from now. But there's a key question, that thing you need to know, and that is the law says you have to offer this no later than September 30th, 2027, right? So we're getting plans. All right, where are we going to put this? What coursework is going to address this? How are we going to map it out across all of our programs? How do we envision this? Then you'll get that feedback, and a year from then, so June 30, 2026, we'll get a more finalized and robust program to study from. And we'll get the determination letters out to you as soon after that as we can, and any final feedback, so that you are all well positioned to have these courses, this coursework in place across all of your programs, well in advance of the legislated timeline. And we know how little people know, particularly, and I'm talking about a community here, so I'm going to say a gross overgeneralization. We know how little a lot of literacy faculty members actually know about dyslexia, right? And there are standouts. So when Gina was teaching, she used the book Overcoming Dyslexia, which tells you lots and lots of stuff. When I was teaching, I was including that in my coursework too. So it's there. We know that there are great things going on in this, but we need to make sure it's spread out across everybody. And so we're going to start giving you, as we accumulate them, resources that you can use to educate faculty across programs, to even pass on to students. We hope that this does not become wheel the television into the front of the classroom and we put on the dyslexia video cassette and I step out and 30 minutes later come back and check on what people have learned. So if we think of good, better, and best implementation, that's going to be under good. And by under, I don't mean in the category of good. I mean, that's sub. So if we can do better than that, then ACEs. And I'm more ambitious, of course, than that piece. So there were some starter questions that came in. Should every area, elementary, secondary, PK, K-12, submit separate application documents in the June 2025 window? I can say it, I'll say it politely. Heck no. We want to verify that it is occurring across all the programs, but we don't expect that you're putting a separate thing together, because we know what your enrollment numbers are like, and we know that that's probably not really sustainable to have these sort of separate courses of study in this by major. I mean, you might, great, if you're a resource to do so. But no, we want to incorporate all of that into a single bit of documentation. If new disciplinary literacy standards course of study is effective fall 2025, does this mean we cannot recommend students graduating in December 2025 on their former plan of study? No, it does not mean that. So we've got some double negatives or triple negatives in here. That means you've got the program in place, you're offering it. I mean, you have contracts with your students, their programs of study to teach them out. And the thing about the disciplinary literacy standards, there isn't a test for them. There's not a question in the MOEX application. It's not built into any of our existing MTTCs. And so there's nothing that's going to stop somebody if, like, we've got this new disciplinary literacy set of core, or our 3-credit program of study in disciplinary literacy is now changed. I mean, people graduate from old programs and you move them along. We love it when you can accelerate that for folks and get more people in, but there you are. The application references disciplinary literacy for ELA, math, science, and social studies. What about world languages, ESL, arts, and other PK K-12 endorsements? By the rules, every program that is a secondary grade band or a PK-12 grade band must have a 3-credit course of study in disciplinary literacy. We used to say reading, a course of reading and reading as appropriate to the content area. So this is something that should be happening in your existing K-12 and PK-12 programs. You just now have new standards for it. Whether you, the easiest way to implement this is to, reconfigure your content area reading class, right? And using the disciplinary literacy standards. There are other models for how to address it and make it more relevant. I taught that class at Michigan State and in my grad program. And I think I spent most of the time selling the value of it to non-English majors than I did, much else. So, but yeah, that is an expectation. Disciplinary literacy is addressed across all of these programs. With EPP implementation of dyslexia preparation beginning fall 2026, how do we address the situation of candidates who are more than halfway through their former plan of study? Excellent question. And this is where the language of the law, which seems like beautifully unambiguous and is set in stone, has some loopholes in it. And that says you have to offer this program of study by 2027. Offer the program of study. That doesn't mean that everybody who's graduating in this has got it, right? It would be nice to have if you're able to integrate it into what coursework they have left in some way, shape, or form. But Public Act 147 does not exist on its own. It is tie-barred with Public Act 146. And in 146, districts have a responsibility for ensuring that all of their teachers have dyslexia training. And that says specifically, if they get it during their undergrad, great. If they got it as part of their program, they're great, they're good to go. If they didn't get it, then the district needs to provide it. So if you have people who make it out without having passed through that, they're going to get it in their K-12 service. Okay, so it's a big umbrella between these two bills to get to this. So good, better, best. If you can integrate it into coursework that remains, yay. If you can't, it's going to be all right because they're going to have to get it through their K-12 schools when they get employed. What if they don't teach in a Michigan school? Well, okay, they don't. then it's not. Then this problem is not your problem. There are other problems if your people are abandoning Michigan and going to other states. But the law does not say things like they can't get a certificate if they haven't had this. They can't have, renew their certificate unless they have this. So it's a big system. A lot of people getting trained in dyslexia. And so we hope that between what we can do in undergrad and grad, as well as in K-12, we will be able to touch all teachers. Not mentioned in here is there is a waiver possibility. We haven't worked that out yet, but if you don't offer programs in the areas of like elementary, reading, literacy, school psychologist, you could be exempt from a portion of the dyslexia laws. So like the evidence-based practices. So we've heard from people who, in fields that are not literacy specialists say, we don't want to have to teach our candidates how to teach reading. And I get it, because there isn't a good reason why a secondary science teacher is teaching basic reading skills to high school students. We know that there are high school students who need it. But yeah, they're not the primary responsibility. That's why those evidence-based practices portions of the law apply to a limited selection of programs. All right. Well, I've got Q&A. Also, would like to entertain any conversation you have on the dyslexia. If you've got any models of implementation so far. We are kind of running into past break time, so and then the next presentation.
Yeah, I guess what I would just say is we made an executive decision to kind of skip the break, but you can feel free to get up and have some food. I know lunch is here. You can hold off on grabbing that until we get close to the lunchtime. So we can continue on if you want to have a little bit of Q&A on this. Then we can move into the conversation about core teaching practices and the assessments for those. Any thoughts you want us to share on dyslexia?
Not so much dyslexia, but you talk about the you just put off the goal of something else complete.
Okay.
I'm mad if anybody else is falling, but I'm freezing my ass off. The people at home, so the party.
HVAC is always the bane of our existence, right?
I mean, I recognize you don't have like all your literacy faculty members here. I mean, I know some of you are literacy and do this stuff very well. But you know.
Thought in mind.
Yeah.
Are you or someone willing to come and talk to all literacy faculty? Because as a math person, I'm like, okay, kind of get this, but like, could you some help explaining to them all the many things we're gonna have to do?
Yeah, we're not opposed to doing that. Just as Bridget has offered to come to talk MTTC, we're happy to come to any campus and talk about this, other standards areas, things of that nature. I would say just give us some time to collect resources and so that we have some really good stuff to share. I have a conversation next week with a recognized dyslexia expert who I've been talking with now for years about what does it look like for pre-service teachers? Like what's sort of the time that you would spend to meet the spirit of the law? What are the ways of engaging with it? And I think it's going to seem less challenging than it might look. Because I did get we don't expect this to be a 3-credit class that is called dyslexia and it's discontents. It is something that can be much more nimble. And you do it well, you can sell yourself to K-12 schools, sell your programming as a professional learning. So the schools have an obligation to do this with their teachers. And if you do it well, then you open up a market for some professional learning. Mm-hmm. Well, Kate Boswell Gallagher, our data and accountability unit manager, is not here with us. I don't know if she's online sneaking around, but she used to say, here's a chance to get the grumpies out on when we were doing the EPI performance score. So, these are our opportunities to do so. But there we go. I appreciate the attention. Thanks.
I think.
All right, we've got one last topic before we break for lunch. This came up in the DARTEP listserv, folks asking about assessments, approaches to assessing for teaching practices. And so, and I just want to say, we appreciate people tossing out those ideas because it gives us things to add to the agenda that we know that are relevant to the group, right? Instead of trying to figure out, I wonder what people want to talk about. So we appreciate you doing that. Sarah from Concordia said that she's willing to share some assessments that they have developed. They are linked there for you to look at. She hoped to be here in person, but wasn't able to make it in person, but she hopefully is online. And so, Sarah, do you want to share a little bit about these resources you've put together with us?
Yeah, is it able for me to share my screen? Or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to stop sharing then, right? Okay. Yeah, you should be able to share now.
Okay. It says it's not turned on. Oh, there we go. Should be good now, maybe. Yep, got it. Okay. I did type up this information for you because it might be easier for some of you to read it, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have as well. I serve in an online program in the master's program at Concordia University. And the way that we have incorporated the CTPs is we introduce one each course and then review kind of the previously introduced CTPs through each course. We really try to focus on not having them be independent. We found students were struggling more. We were kind of teaching them a little bit more independently. And now they're much more incorporated into what we do. And I've kind of given, a background if you look at this document that I have here, just to kind of give you a background of what we do and how we do it. And what's really interesting is that our students have responded. We don't ask a lot of questions in our discussion boards about the CTPs, which is something that we are looking at adjusting for our courses, but the students have been talking a lot about them. So we do, when we introduce one, we do talk about it obviously in the class, and then students talk about what that looks like in their coursework, in their grade band specifically. And we found that kind of holding them accountable for having that practical application has been really beneficial to them. Especially what I think is neat is that our courses are intergrade band courses. So students, we had a comment, for instance, I just taught last semester about explaining and modeling content. And a student from the pre-K to 3 said, well, I think modeling is so important in early on because students, they need to be able to see that happening in the classroom. And then someone at the high school level said, well, they got to see that too at the high school level. It's the same across all the grade bands. And so I think them having those conversations and having that be student driven has helped them with their retention. So we do a lot of that. You can see I put some student comments in here too, just so you can see like what they say about it. The other thing that so here's the chart that we require them to do each class period. And these are just some student examples. So just so you could kind of see, we require them to, that first column is what is the core teaching practice? We give them the definition. In class, we require them to come up with it in their own words and talk about what that means to them. And then the other big piece that we found that has helped students be successful is tying it into the Danielson domain. And so we obviously cover Danielson as part of our framework. And students have to choose 3 domains that they think apply most directly to the CTP. And then they have to give us 3 classroom examples of what that looks like. So again, these are grade band specific and specific to the student and what they think that looks like within their own classroom. And so this has been really beneficial because we're not providing the answer for students. We're making them actually, internalize the information and come up with a practical application of it, which we have found in assessing them, they actually can produce, if I ask them, what does explaining modeling content, what does it mean and what does it look like in a classroom? They can actually do that. So these are just 2 examples of students, just so you can kind of see what they're talking about. I have included as well in the documents, the actual, like the assignment that we give them. So you can see, we give them, what the definition is provided for them. And then again, the directions are there. They have to then go and define it in their own terms. And then we give them an example so they know kind of how to start. And then they turn in this as their assessment for that course. And then I've also included in there the rubric we use, so you can see what that looks like for us. We're really, wanting them to be able to correlate it to Danielson, to give grade band specific examples, to give classroom examples, and then to understand how all of that information correlates together. Students then take this information and they kind of compile it all. So part of their student teaching is that they have this document where they have to self-reflect on all this information that they've accumulated over their coursework. And they have to talk about, they update the chart to see if they have any different examples or better examples or more examples that they can add to that. And then one of their assignments is reflecting on what does CTPs really mean in a classroom now that they've taught more and now that they have classroom experience, what does that really truly look like in the classroom? So that's also an assignment that we use to assess them. We've also added the CTPs to the Danielson lesson plan template. And I've found that has really helped them in terms of understanding that, again, CTPs aren't something that are separate from what they're learning, but it's an integrated part of their program. And so when when we go to observe them for student teaching, they have to list on their lesson plan, what CTP are they covering? And that is like a requirement for our observations, is that they do talk about that. And that has really helped too, students, I think, like even having the chart where they're talking about, oh, this is what it looks like in a classroom, but then having it in their lesson plan where they're saying, oh, this is actually what I did. This is how I, in my small group, I modeled content, and they're seeing those connections of, oh, sometimes I'm covering more than one CTP at a time. And, having those conversations for them, being able to talk about that, I think is really important. So I just wanted to share those with you. Like I said, we've heard some really positive feedback from students about how we're incorporating CTP. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And like I said, if you have any questions, I'm happy to share what we're doing.
Thanks, Sarah. Are there questions specific about what Sarah shared in the documents and the things they've created at Concordia? And if you're online, you can feel free to unmute and toss those questions out to us as well. But anyone here in person have any questions? Okay, seeing none, are there, I know, again, this came from this was first brought up in the listserv. So thinking about the initial question and request in the listserv, are there things that people want to share about what they're doing? Are there other questions that people have? Are there different directions you'd like to see this discussion go? We can have some small group discussions within the tables, and online you can within the chat, if that would be more productive. We're open to however you want this discussion to go. Or not. Talk at tables? You want to talk at tables? Hopefully there's some different if you find yourself sitting at a table with everyone from the same institution, you know, if you want to mix around, feel free to do that. And so you can find some folks from different institutions to get some different perspectives. And then those of you who are online, yeah, feel free to engage in some discussion via the chat. And then we can come back together and see what was discussed. All right. So yeah, you might need to, this is your chance to move a little if you need to do some musical chairs. I think we have one person that didn't come in. Oh, I know. Okay. All right, we're going to get back to the agenda here. We've got our friends from Western Michigan. They're going to come and talk to us a little bit about project impact. So I'll invite them up, let them introduce themselves, and hopefully our folks online are back with us again.
Hello, I'm Rena Vanderwall. I'm an assistant professor in special education at Western.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Hegley. I'm a faculty specialist in elementary ed at WMU.
We are just going to take a couple minutes to talk about a grant project that was funded through Michigan Department of Ed because we are really, well, I'll get there, but we're seeking feedback from around the state, and we would really love if you all could provide some feedback on the project. So the state of Michigan, you probably have heard, has a series of 3 grants, 27H grants around mentoring and induction that are already out or coming out. And so this project is aligned with the first initiative around creating mentoring standards, curriculum, and professional development or professional learning to support those standards. And so Western was excited to be funded for this grant, and we are thick in the work of doing it. So we just wanted to quickly show you who's on the team. Dr. Crystal Earhart is our Senior Associate Dean of Teacher Education at Western, so she's leading the project. And then there's a group of faculty across school administration, school counseling, and then different areas of teacher education that are all working to develop this work. So, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so far the work, we received the grant or end of June. So far we've done a literature review of just all the literature around induction coaching, mentoring, different types of coaching, all of that. We've done a standards review. So we have reviewed standards from across the country that states, all different states that have standards for mentoring and induction. And that was really interesting to kind of see what people have done, including the new teacher center standards. We've then created draft standards from all of that literature and standards review. We then, with those draft standards, brought together an advisory board back on November 1st, came to campus to give us feedback on the first round of the draft standards, and that advisory board is just people from all across the state in different roles. We have created needs assessment, a survey that will go out shortly, hasn't gone out yet, to get more feedback from current mentors, current teachers, early career teachers, other people in the field. And then we're continuing right now to get more stakeholder feedback, which includes all of you. And then going forward with all of the feedback we're receiving, we'll then revise the standards, and those will be done end of January. And then we'll be putting together focus groups to again kind of look at the standards, talk about what they're seeing, give out that needs assessment survey, finalize the standards, and then we move into creating professional learning and resources for districts, ISDs that will implement the standards, professional learning and resources for those groups of people. Yeah.
So this is an overview of how the standards are laid out at this point in the draft. So we have 3 umbrellas: foundation, structures, and practices for mentoring support in the schools. The foundations is made up of mission, vision, and goals, program leadership, and program resources. Structures consists of roles and responsibilities for program leaders and mentors, mentor selection and assignment or matching, mentor professional growth and continuous improvement. And then the practices are broken into support for teaching and learning, building culture and community, and well-being and belonging. And then in that orange third umbrella of practices, they go into discipline-specific practices for teachers, school administrators, and school counselors. So this has been in flux as we've gotten feedback on the standards and made revisions. So this isn't necessarily the final where we'll land, but how we have everything laid out right now. So what we would love from anyone who's interested in this project is to give us feedback on where we're at in the drafts right now. One of the priorities, of course, for us, but also that the state has really communicated, is that we really want to get input from across the state throughout the process. And so us being here today is part of that initiative. So there's a link in the PowerPoint with the word here, there's a QR code, and we're also going to send out an email via the listserv this afternoon with a link to the standards. They're in a Google document, and anyone that accesses the document has comment access. And so we would just ask that you write comments within the document about what you might add if you feel that something's missing or something needs to be revised. And then our team is working through those revisions or those comments together to make revisions to the standards. Is there any questions we could answer about this for you all? Okay, thank you. We know you're all very busy, but we really do appreciate any input you're able to provide so that the product from this project is really responsive to the needs of the state and the different stakeholders. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rena and Terry, for all your work on this project and your colleagues as well. So next up, final item for today is our job like sessions, and Gina's apparently excited about that. Oh, well, that's what we're wondering. Like, yeah, Stein's going to be done talking to us. I don't know what the excitement was for. Okay, but before we break into those groups, please take a box lunch for the road. It can be your dinner, whatever. We don't want this stuff to go to waste, and whatever we don't take will probably end up, unfortunately, in a trash can. So please take it, take 2, 3, 4, whatever. You can go home and say, look, I made dinner, or I made lunch for tomorrow. Aren't I great? I know you're wondering, what's up with the cookies? You know, who shrunk the cookies? I don't know what happened. I think they went through the dry cycle. I'm not sure what happened. They used to be like actually the size of cookies and not quarters. So I myself stole 3 out of my table mates' boxes. They didn't even know. But anyway, yeah, and don't just go through and open up boxes and take the cookies out. Come on, take the whole box, all right? So anyway, that's okay. So here are the room assignments. So deans and directors, we're going to go across the lobby in a room pretty much like this one, and we'll be in that room. Accreditation and assessment is going to stay here, and the clinical placement coordinators are going to be in 110, 111, and certification officers 120, 121. So those are classrooms. There are signs. You just head down the hallway a little bit. I think 110 and 111 is on the right, 120 and 121 is on the left, and if not, they're flipped, but there are signs there. The rooms are pretty configurable. They're currently set up in kind of a big rectangle, but the tables all have wheels and chairs, so if you get in and think this is a huge rectangle, we don't need that much space, roll it around however you want, that's fine. Thank you very much. Reminder, one topic that we'd like you to discuss is membership in DARTEP for community colleges and alternate route programs. If you could please have a little bit of a discussion on that, and your thoughts on that would be helpful, and capture that in the notes. Make sure we have a note taker in each group. Have safe travel, have a good break coming up, and happy early new year to you all. We'll see you in February online. Thank you.